The air was thick with the scent of fresh flowers, and the faint sound of laughter drifted from the backyard, where my daughter Sophia played with her cousins. I stood at the kitchen counter, my hands trembling slightly as I arranged the gifts on the table. Each one was a promise, a symbol of hope for our future together. The pastel colors of the wrapping paper seemed to mock me, reminding me that while I was surrounded by family, I felt more alone than ever. My parents had arrived earlier, their smiles plastered on their faces, but I could sense the tension simmering beneath the surface. "Julia, are you going to just stand there?" my mother, Evelyn, called out, her voice sharp. "We need to take a picture before the cake gets cut." I forced a smile, my heart racing. I wanted to enjoy this moment, to capture the joy of Sophia's baby shower, but the weight of my parents' indifference pressed down on me. They had chosen their vacation over being there for me, and now here they were, seemingly oblivious to the turmoil brewing in my heart. As the camera clicked, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the window. My eyes were wide, betraying the nervousness I tried so hard to mask. I remembered the last time we were all together like this. The laughter felt genuine then, but now it seemed strained, filled with awkward silences and forced smiles. My father made a joke about my parenting choices, and I could feel my cheeks flush with embarrassment. "Oh, lighten up, Julia, it's just a joke," he chuckled, oblivious to how his words cut deep. I glanced at Sophia, her innocent laughter ringing in my ears, a stark contrast to the disappointment I felt towards my parents. I wanted them to understand how their actions made me feel, to realize that their choices had consequences that rippled through our lives. But as they continued to laugh and joke, I felt a familiar anger bubbling within me. In that moment, I knew I had to confront them. I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine when it clearly wasn't. The thought of a family gathering turning into a battleground filled me with dread, but I was determined to reclaim my voice. The tension hung in the air, thick and palpable, setting the stage for what was to come. I could no longer ignore the rift that had formed between us, and I felt a surge of resolve begin to build. As the gathering continued, I prepared myself for the confrontation that loomed ahead. My heart raced with anticipation and fear, knowing that the path to healing would not be easy. I had to gather my strength and hope that perhaps, just perhaps, my parents would finally see the truth of their actions. The silence of my home was deafening, a stark contrast to the laughter that had filled the air just hours before. I stood in the dim light of the living room, the soft glow from the lamp casting long shadows against the walls, each one a reminder of the distance growing between my parents and me. My hands trembled as I wrapped my arms around myself, feeling the weight of my frustration settle like a stone in my stomach. I had just spent an afternoon surrounded by family, yet here I was, alone with my thoughts, grappling with the reality of my situation. Memories of my parents' dismissive comments echoed in my mind, each one a barb that pierced deeper than the last. "You need to toughen up, Julia," my mother had said, her tone dripping with condescension. I could still see her face, the way her lips curled dismissively as she laughed off my concerns. It was as if she had forgotten the sacrifices I had made for my daughter, Sophia. I felt a surge of anger rise within me, mixing with the sadness that threatened to overwhelm my resolve. The thought of confronting them loomed large, a daunting task that filled me with dread. I could picture the family meeting that was to come, the tension hanging thick in the air like a storm cloud ready to burst. I had rehearsed my words 1,000 times in my head, but now, standing alone in my living room, they felt like lead weights, heavy and unyielding. I wanted to express my hurt, to demand their support, yet the fear of their reaction held me back. Would they dismiss my pain again? Just then, the door creaked open, and Mark stepped inside, his brow furrowed with concern. "Hey, I was just checking on you. You okay?" His gentle voice cut through my spiraling thoughts, grounding me for a moment. I forced a smile, but it felt hollow. "I don't know, Mark, I can't keep pretending everything is fine when it's not. I need them to understand how their choices impact me and Sophia. I feel so alone in this fight." My voice trembled as I spoke, the weight of my emotions spilling over. I could see the conflict in his eyes, the loyalty he felt towards his own family, but he stepped closer, wrapping me in a warm embrace. In that moment, I realized I had to gather my strength. I needed to confront my parents, to lay bare the truth of my pain and the betrayal that had led us to this point. The thought filled me with both fear and determination. I had to reclaim my voice, to demand the support I so desperately needed. As the evening wore on, I felt the tension in my chest tighten, a storm brewing within me, ready to break free. The confrontation was inevitable, and I could only hope that my parents would finally see the reality of their actions. But deep down, I feared the worst, that they would continue to dismiss my pain, leaving me stranded in this emotional turmoil, fighting a battle that felt increasingly impossible to win. The fluorescent lights of the foster care agency flickered overhead, casting a sterile glow that felt oppressive. The air was thick with the scent of antiseptic, mingling with the faint sound of distant conversations, a stark reminder of the reality I faced. As I sat in the waiting area, my heart pounded wildly against my ribs, a steady drumbeat of anxiety that echoed my desperation. I clutched the fabric of my jeans, the coarse texture grounding me as I fought to keep my emotions in check. How had it come to this? My daughter, Sophia, was in the system because my parents had prioritized their vacation over my needs. When my name was finally called, I stood up with a shaking breath, the weight of my determination propelling me forward. The social worker, a middle-aged woman with a kind but weary smile, gestured for me to sit. "Julia, we need to discuss your case. There are some concerns that we must address." Her voice was calm, but I could hear the underlying tension. I felt a lump form in my throat, fear clawing at my insides. "Concerns," I managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. My mind raced with worst-case scenarios. What if they thought I was unfit? What if I never got Sophia back? Memories of my parents' dismissive laughter echoed in my mind, their words like knives. I was desperate to show them that I was a good mother, that I could provide for my daughter, yet the system felt like an insurmountable barrier. As the social worker began outlining the requirements for regaining custody, I clenched my fists, feeling a surge of anger and determination. "I'll do whatever it takes," I declared, my voice stronger than I felt. "I can't lose her. She's my everything." A flicker of surprise crossed the woman's face, and I sensed a shift in the atmosphere. My resolve was palpable, even in the sterile room filled with paperwork and policies. But just as quickly as that determination filled me, it was overshadowed by the crushing reality of my situation. The social worker explained the process, emphasizing the long road ahead. "We need to ensure a stable environment for Sophia, Julia. This won't be easy." My heart sank as I realized the extent of the obstacles in my path. I left the agency with a heavy heart, the weight of the world pressing down on me. Each step felt like a mile, and I fought back tears as I recalled how my parents' choices had led to this moment. A shocking realization hit me. Their selfishness wasn't just a personal betrayal. It had created a ripple effect that endangered my relationship with my daughter. Would they ever understand? Outside, the sun was setting, casting a warm glow over the suburban neighborhood, yet the beauty of the evening felt like a cruel joke. I pulled my jacket tighter around me, shivering not from the cold but from the dread that clung to me. I needed to reclaim my daughter, but the system was daunting, and my heart felt heavy with uncertainty. I breathed deeply, forcing myself to focus. I would fight for her, no matter the cost. The battle had just begun, and I was ready to face it head-on. The atmosphere in the living room felt charged as I sat across from my parents, the air thick with unspoken words and unresolved tension. The soft light from the lamp cast shadows that danced along the walls, mirroring the chaos inside my heart. I had invited them over with the hope of bridging the growing chasm between us, but as I glanced at Evelyn and my father, their expressions remained inscrutable, like stone masks that betrayed nothing. "Can we just talk about this?" I began, my voice trembling. I could feel my hands fidgeting with the hem of my sweater, a physical manifestation of my anxiety. The weight of disappointment pressed down on me like a lead blanket. I wanted to convey my hurt, to explain how their choices had affected not just me, but also Sophia. The silence stretched, heavy and suffocating, until my mother finally spoke, her tone dismissive. "Julia, we thought you were over this. It's not like we made a terrible decision. You need to move on," she said, her eyes flickering with impatience. My heart sank further at her words, each one a dagger that cut deeper. How could she not see the gravity of the situation? I felt the heat rise in my cheeks, a mix of anger and hurt boiling just beneath the surface. "Move on, Mom. I can't just move on when my daughter is in foster care because of your choices," I shot back, my voice rising in pitch. I was surprised by my own intensity, but it felt like a release, a necessary expression of the frustration that had been building for so long. I could see my father's jaw tighten, his body language closed off, as if my words were a personal attack rather than a desperate plea for understanding. Evelyn rolled her eyes. "You always make everything so dramatic. We're your parents. You should be grateful we even showed up." Her words stung, and I could feel the tears prickling my eyes, a mix of confusion and anger coursing through me. I blinked them back, refusing to let them see how deeply their disregard affected me. "Grateful? I'm not asking for your pity, I'm asking for support. I need you to understand how hard this is for me," I pressed, my voice shaking with emotion. The room felt smaller, the walls closing in as I laid bare my heart, revealing the vulnerability I had hidden for so long. The confrontation was escalating, and though part of me feared what might happen next, another part felt empowered by finally speaking my truth. Just then my phone buzzed on the table, breaking the tension momentarily. It was a message from Sarah, a reminder that I wasn't alone in this fight. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself before returning my gaze to my parents. They were still seated, rigid and unyielding, as if my words had not registered at all. I needed to find a way to reach them, to make them see the reality of my struggle and the emotional toll their actions had taken. The early morning light filtered through the window, casting soft shadows across my living room as I sat curled up on the couch, clutching a mug of lukewarm coffee. The familiar scent of roasted beans mingled with the faint remnants of last night's tension, leaving an unsettling aftertaste in my mouth. I gazed at the empty space where Sophia's toys usually sprawled, a painful reminder of her absence that gnawed at my heart with each passing moment. As I sipped the bitter brew, my mind drifted to the conversation I had with Sarah the previous night. She had listened patiently as I recounted the fallout from my confrontation with my parents, her expression a mix of sympathy and frustration. "Julia, you need to find a way to make them see how their actions have hurt you. It's not just about the past, it's about Sophia too," she had urged, her voice firm yet gentle. I remembered how her eyes had sparkled with determination, and I wished I could share that same fire. In my solitude, I felt the weight of hopelessness settle over me. I wanted so desperately to achieve some semblance of peace with my parents, yet every attempt seemed to deepen the fracture between us. My phone buzzed, startling me from my reverie. It was a text from Sarah, checking in and offering to meet later. I hesitated, my fingers hovering over the screen. What could I possibly say? I felt like a failure, caught in a cycle of disappointment and despair. I recalled the last family gathering, where I had tried to bridge the gap, but their dismissive attitudes had shattered any hope I had for reconciliation. The memory of my mother's cold laughter echoed in my mind, a sound that seemed to punctuate my failures. "You always make things so complicated, Julia. Why can't you just accept things as they are?" Her words rang in my ears, a harsh reminder of the chasm between us. Determined not to let despair consume me, I took a deep breath and set my mug down, the ceramic cool against my palm. I needed to refocus. I had to find a way to confront this emotional turmoil head-on. The thought of reaching out to my parents again filled me with dread, yet I knew I could not keep hiding behind my anger. Perhaps if I approached them differently, with vulnerability instead of accusation, I might finally spark a glimmer of understanding. With renewed resolve, I picked up my phone, my fingers trembling as I composed a message to Sarah. I needed her support now more than ever. As I pressed send, a flicker of hope ignited within me, but doubt lingered, whispering that this might just be another futile effort. I could feel my heart race as the implications of my next move weighed heavily on my shoulders. The path to peace felt fraught with uncertainty, yet I knew I had to try. I owed it to myself and to Sophia. The afternoon sun filtered through the trees, casting dappled shadows across my living room floor as I sifted through a pile of old family documents. The scent of musty paper filled the air, mingling with the faint aroma of the coffee I had abandoned on the table. My heart raced with a mixture of anticipation and dread. I had decided to dive deeper into the tangled web of my family's past, hoping to unearth something, anything, that could explain my parents' actions. As I flipped through a stack of yellowed letters, one in particular caught my eye. The envelope was addressed to my mother but had been opened with a careless rip. I hesitated, the weight of the moment pressing heavily on my chest. What if I found something that shattered my already fragile perception of them? My fingers trembled as I pulled the letter from its confines, the elegant script revealing secrets that had long been hidden. The words danced before my eyes, detailing a family rift I had never known existed, hidden tensions between my parents and my grandparents over their perceived obligations to family. The revelation felt like a punch to the gut. How could they have held on to this animosity, allowing it to fester while I struggled alone? I felt a surge of anger swell within me, mixed with the betrayal that had become all too familiar. I needed to talk to Sarah, to process this new information with someone who understood my pain. My phone buzzed as if sensing my turmoil, a message from her lighting up the screen. "Thinking of you, let's meet soon." I hesitated, the conflict of wanting to share my discovery warring with the fear of exposing my parents' flaws, but I couldn't ignore the urgency to confront them with this newfound knowledge. Just then the door creaked open and Mark stepped in, his eyes scanning the room filled with concern. "Hey, you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost," he said, his voice laced with worry. I swallowed hard, my heart racing as I relayed the details of what I had just uncovered. The look on his face shifted from concern to disbelief, his brow furrowing as he processed the implications of my findings. "This changes everything, Julia. You need to confront them with this. It's not just about you anymore, it's about breaking this cycle of betrayal for Sophia too," Mark urged, his voice steady but filled with urgency. I nodded, the determination rising within me like a tide. I could no longer remain passive. I had to reclaim my narrative, not just for myself, but for my daughter as well. The stakes had never been higher, and I was ready to face the storm that lay ahead. The soft light of the late afternoon filtered through the window, casting a warm glow over my living room as I sat across from Sarah, the familiar scent of coffee wafting in the air. I clutched a notebook, the pages filled with scribbled thoughts and ideas, my fingers trembling slightly with a mix of anxiety and anticipation. This was it. We were going to strategize the confrontation with my parents, the moment I had been both dreading and longing for. "So what's the plan?" Sarah asked, her voice steady yet filled with concern. Her brown eyes were fixed on me, searching for assurance. I took a deep breath, trying to quell the storm of emotions swirling inside me. I could feel the weight of the world pressing down on my shoulders, but my resolve was hardening. I need to make them understand how their actions have affected me and Sophia. I can't just let them dismiss my pain any longer. The words spilled out, a surge of determination flowing through me. Sarah nodded, her expression serious. "Okay, but let's be realistic. They might not respond the way you hope. What do you want to achieve from this confrontation?" I paused, my heart racing as I considered her question. What did I truly want? I want them to see me, to recognize that I'm not just their daughter, but a mother fighting for her child. I need them to feel the weight of their choices, to realize they can't just walk away from their responsibilities, I said, my voice thick with emotion. The thought of their indifference still stung, and I could feel my heartbeat quicken with the anticipation of impending confrontation. As we continued to discuss, I visualized the scene in my mind. My parents sitting across from me, their expressions unreadable, the tension hanging in the air like a charged electrical current. I imagined their reactions, the dismissals, the excuses, and my own rising anger. Every scenario played out in vivid detail, fueling my determination but also igniting a flicker of fear. What if they didn't change? What if this only deepened the rift? "Let's write down key points you want to address," Sarah suggested, pulling me from my spiraling thoughts. I nodded, grateful for her grounded presence. We began jotting down my grievances, the moments of hurt and betrayal. Each word felt like a step toward reclaiming my voice, a reclaiming of my narrative. In that moment, amidst the scrawled notes and emotional support, I felt a surge of hope. I wasn't alone in this fight. I had Sarah by my side, reinforcing my resolve. I would confront my parents, and no matter the outcome, I would finally stand up for what I believed in. The anticipation bubbled within me, a mix of fear and determination, setting the stage for the climax that was fast approaching. The living room felt like a pressure cooker, the air thick with unsaid words and unexpressed emotions. I could hear the ticking of the clock on the wall, each second amplifying the weight of the moment. My hands trembled slightly as I sat across from my parents, their faces unreadable, yet their defensiveness was palpable. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what I was about to say. "Do you even understand the impact of your choices?" I began, my voice steadier than I felt. My heart raced, adrenaline coursing through my veins as I looked into their eyes, searching for any sign of empathy. Evelyn's expression remained cold, and I could feel an anger bubbling just beneath the surface. "You prioritized your vacation over being there for me when I needed you most. You don't get to just ignore that." The room was silent for a moment, the tension hanging like a storm cloud ready to burst. My father shifted uncomfortably in his seat, a flicker of irritation crossing his features. "Julia, we didn't think it would come to this. You're blowing things out of proportion," he replied, his tone dismissive. It was as if my pain was nothing more than a mere inconvenience to them. "Blowing things out of proportion?" I echoed, my voice rising. "My daughter is in foster care and you think I'm overreacting. Do you realize what that feels like for me?" The frustration poured out of me, each word laced with a mixture of hurt and desperation. I could see my mother's lips tighten, her defensiveness rising as she prepared to counter my accusations. "Maybe if you had made better choices, none of this would have happened," she shot back, her voice sharp and cutting. The words hit me like a slap, igniting a firestorm of emotions within me. I felt my heart race, a mixture of grief and rage surging through me. "You don't get to blame me for your choices. I'm not the one who chose to turn my back on family." As the argument escalated, I could feel the walls closing in around me, the weight of our unresolved issues crashing down like a tidal wave. I had wanted to open a dialogue, to find common ground, but instead, the confrontation spiraled into chaos. My voice shook with emotion as I fought to make them see my reality. "I need you to understand how your actions have hurt me, how they've hurt Sophia. I'm fighting for her and I can't do it alone." In that moment, the dam broke. My mother's facade cracked, and for a fleeting second, I saw a flicker of regret in her eyes. But just as quickly, she masked it again with anger, the cycle of blame continuing. The confrontation had reached a boiling point, and I realized that the fight for my daughter might also be a fight for my relationship with my parents, a battle I was both terrified and determined to face. The room felt electric, charged with unresolved feelings and the weight of choices long made, setting the stage for the aftermath that loomed ahead. The aftermath of the confrontation hung in the air like a thick fog, obscuring the path ahead. I sat in the dim light of my living room, the weight of my parents' dismissive words echoing in my mind. Their faces had been a mix of anger and confusion, but the real pain came from the realization that they still didn't understand the gravity of their choices. The silence that followed felt like an abyss, swallowing any hope of reconciliation. I clutched a photograph of Sophia, her bright smile a stark contrast to the turmoil within me. It was a reminder of what I was fighting for, and yet the image also brought a wave of sorrow crashing over me. Days passed, and I found myself reflecting on the confrontation, replaying it like a broken record. I was determined to move forward, but the pain of betrayal lingered like a shadow, following me into every moment. I often found solace in the small things: the scent of fresh coffee brewing in the morning, the sound of Sophia's laughter as she played with her toys, and the warmth of the sun filtering through the window. Each moment was a reminder of what I stood to lose if I didn't reclaim my daughter. Yet, the bitterness of my parents' actions still stung, leaving me feeling isolated and misunderstood. Despite the heartache, I knew I had to channel my pain into action. I reached out to Sarah, who had been my steadfast support through this tumultuous journey. Over cups of coffee, we discussed my next steps, brainstorming ways to navigate the complicated path ahead. There was a flicker of hope in her voice as she encouraged me to focus on my goals. "You're stronger than you think, Julia. This fight isn't just about your parents, it's about Sophia, and you'll find a way to make it right," she assured me. Her words ignited a determination within me, rekindling the flames of resilience I thought had been extinguished. As I took a deep breath, I realized that healing would take time, but I was willing to face the challenges ahead. I would not let my parents' betrayal define my journey. My heart still ached, but I was ready to confront the pain and fight for my daughter. The journey was far from over, and though uncertainty loomed ahead, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I was ready to reclaim my voice, to stand tall for Sophia, and to navigate the complexities of family dynamics one step at a time. Sitting in the soft afternoon light, I cradled Sophia in my arms, her laughter echoing through the cozy living room. The scent of her favorite vanilla lotion lingered in the air, mixing with the warm aroma of freshly baked cookies cooling on the counter. This was our sanctuary, a small haven where the chaos of the outside world faded away. My heart swelled with gratitude as I looked at her, a reminder of the journey we had endured together. I had fought fiercely to reclaim my daughter, and now, holding her close, I felt a sense of purpose solidifying within me. The confrontation with my parents had been a tempest, but it had also been a catalyst for change. The weight of their dismissive words lingered, yet I understood that healing was a process, one that required patience and resilience. In the days following our tumultuous exchange, I had reflected deeply on what it meant to be a mother, and how my own experiences shaped my desires for Sophia. I wanted her to know that family could be complicated, but love was worth fighting for. With each passing moment spent with her, I felt my resolve strengthen. I had learned to navigate the complexities of my family dynamics while forging my own path. Conversations with Sarah had helped me uncover the layers of my pain, allowing me to transform it into a source of strength. Together, we